All right, hello. So I have a really quick devotion for today. I was reading in Mark chapter 1, verses 35 through 37, and there's just a few things that caught my attention that I wanted to share today. So I'll read this story, and I'll stop along the way and kind of tell you my thoughts. So verse 35, while it was still night, way before dawn, he, Jesus, got up and went out to a secluded spot and prayed. So the first thing I noticed here is, well, Jesus gave up sleep to pray. That's how important prayer was to him. And he got away by himself. And I've talked about this before, but he was beginning to gather quite a following by this time. Even though he really wasn't time and he didn't want that to happen yet, but he had quite a following. So he got up, he forewent to sleep so that he could go and spend time with his Heavenly Father. Well, if we're Christians, if we're Christ-like, then that's something we need to do too. We need to sacrifice our time. Maybe it's sleep, maybe it's work, maybe it's recreation, whatever. But probably going to have to sacrifice something in our lives to fit in that prayer time that we need. That's what Jesus did. The next sentence says, Simon and those with him went looking for him. They found him and said, everybody's looking for you. And Jesus said, let's go to the rest of the villages so I can preach there also. This is why I've come. He went to their meeting. So what he was doing, he was getting charged up. He was going off by himself and praying, gathering energy, getting energized spiritually. He gave up sleep. So he wasn't gathering energy physically, but he was gathering spiritual energy by praying. And then what did he do next? He went out and he started preaching in villages. So he went to their meeting places all through Galilee, preaching and throwing out the demons. A leper came to him, begging on his knees, if you want to, you can cleanse me. Deeply moved, Jesus put out his hand, touched him, and said, I want to. Be clean. Then and there the leprosy was gone, his skin smooth and healthy. Jesus dismissed him with strict orders. Say nothing to anyone. Take the offering for cleansing that Moses prescribed and present yourself to the priest. This will validate your healing to the people. So he told the leper, don't tell anybody. That's what I alluded to earlier. Jesus didn't want a lot of people yet to know about his miracles. We're not real clear why that's true. We see that a lot in the book of Mark. I think they call it the mystery of Mark or something like that, is why Jesus wanted to keep himself kind of low-key early in his ministry. So let me continue. Oh, I also noticed there that he said, even though Jesus is bringing in the new covenant and the new promise from God, he still respects the old covenant. And he told the leper, go and follow the law, do the law of Moses, go to the priest and do the sacrifice and have the priest declare you clean. So Jesus still had respect for that old law. The next sentence, but as soon as the man was out of earshot, he told everyone he met what had happened, spreading the news all over town. So Jesus kept to out-of-the-way places, no longer able to move freely in and out of the city. But people found him and came from all over. So this is something that really caught my attention, is that Jesus did not violate that man's free will. He told him not to go and tell people, but he didn't use his power to force him to not do that. So the man disobeyed Jesus, and he went and he told everybody he knew. It's understandable, he'd been healed from leprosy, but Jesus didn't want him to do that. But here's the thing. So in our lives, a lot of times we worry about, oh, well, I did this in the past, and that really messed up things, so I'm completely off of God's plan now. Because I did this thing in the past, because I made this bad decision, because whatever you may have done, that took me completely off track, and I can't ever get back on track. Well, that's not true, because Jesus himself had his plans thwarted. His plan was shot off track by someone else doing something they weren't supposed to do. But God's plan was still able to come to fruition. Now, the Bible doesn't tell us what would have happened if that man had obeyed Jesus, but it tells us what he had to do. Jesus had to go to out-of-the-way places. He couldn't go in and out of the city. So it would have made his ministry easier if that man had obeyed Jesus. But because he didn't, things were a little more difficult. But then what does it say? But people found him and came from all over. The mission that Jesus was sent to accomplish was still accomplished. despite the fact that it was knocked off track a little bit. So if you think that you've done something that has knocked you off track completely, if you've made a decision that you don't think you can recover from, well, it's just not true, because even Jesus had his plans knocked off track, but God's will was still accomplished. So keep that in mind and don't get discouraged. Have a good day.